Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Dr. Hlami. Welcome again to the Perfect Talk with me. Um, Today, I have a very, very, very exciting session. As I always remind you that when you join the Perfect Talk, you come to the right platform where you're going to meet very amazing people who are doing amazing things within the agricultural sector. Let me remind you again about what PERFECT stands for. Remember, PERFECT is an acronym that stands for policy, education, research, farming and finance, extension and advisory services, communications, technologies and trade. As you may recall, in all our talks, what I'm advocating for is that you can enter into the agricultural sector through different pathways. You can choose any of the pathways to enter into the agricultural sector. Every time we invite, people who are doing amazing things in the agricultural sector through different pathways. Ladies and gentlemen, today before I introduce you, to our exciting, guest, this channel or this perfect talk is about bridging the knowledge gap. There are a lot of experiences, there are a lot of opportunities along the perfect continuum. But on one hand, you have people who do not have access to this knowledge and information. So we are using this platform to bridge that knowledge gap along, the perfect continuum. I know you are excited to know who our guest for today is. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are talking farming with, Steven Barnard. Uh, when we talk farming, some people will say, no, for me to become a farmer, I need to have a very big piece of land. I need to have a very big tractor for me to enter into the agriculture through the farming pathway. Today, we want to demystify that. You don't necessarily need a big tractor. Of course, big tractor, then you can go commercial and all that. But farming, the whole farming sector has got different farming systems. You have commercial farming system, you have, your agroecology, that is a new term that people are talking about. But you also have your smallholder farming system. But we also have something very, very exciting where everybody who want to enter into the agricultural sector can actually do that. But Steven Barnard is going to tell us all about it so that we work together with him. Steven, welcome to the Perfect Show with Dr. Hlami.
Thank you, Dr. Hlami. It's really a privilege being with you here today, and I'm really excited about what you are busy doing in the world, changing people's minds in terms of agriculture. I'm quite privileged to be part of your, shall I call it your fan group?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something briefly about, Steven. I met Steven probably 3, 4 years ago. Ever since, I'm his number one fan. If there's one word that I could describe, Steven, is persistent. I've seen persistent, and persistent in Steven. Once you are part of, his cycle, there's no way you cannot change your attitude. You cannot change how you perceive, agriculture and all that. Steven, I don't see you anymore.
I know something's happened there with my video. There we
No, no,
go.
that's fine. There you back. Okay, but at least I can still hear you. Steven, tell us who Steven Barnard is. Who are you?
Hlami, my background, I am a highly trained military man.
Okay,
As a young man, was conscripted into the Defence Force. All South Africans were forced to go to the Defence Force. And in 1976, I started off as a young recruit at Parachute Battalion.
okay,
From there, I went and did my officers training, and I ended up being a platoon commander in the Bush War in
okay,
southern Angola,
okay,
where I was a commander of a platoon of 32 battalion.
okay.
Now, these were Angolan refugees
Yes,
who fled to southern Africa,
okay,
and they were trained, they were equipped, and they were sent back into Angola to go and fight against SWAPO and Papla and the Cubans.
Okay.
Now, why I'm mentioning this had a tremendous impact on my life as a young man. You know, I was 19 years old.
Okay.
When I was involved in my first combat experience, and it actually took away some of that softness which I grew up. I grew up in a very loving family, where my mother and father taught me to care for people, and I was trained to kill people.
Oh,
so that was a total mind shift, which I had to undergo. But what was very important is that one day we got back from an operation, and we found this little boy who was lying in a tent, and the doctors called me over and they said, please quickly come and hold this little boy. And they tried to put a drip into him. He was suffering from dehydration and malnutrition. His stomach was blown up like a big balloon. And for 2 to 3 hours, they tried to save this little boy. And the little boy actually died while I was holding him. That had a major influence in my life. And 3 months later, we sat with the same situation with a little girl. And we said, this little girl isn't going to die. We're going to save her. Now, you must imagine these hardened, combat-ready soldiers looking after a little girl of 6, 7 months old. And we actually nursed her back to health. And
how did you do that? How did you do that?
Well, by giving her fresh vegetables and fruit.
I see.
You know, I remembered that my mom used to make purity. And we said, well, how are we going to get purity? We're in the middle of the bush. So we took vegetables and we actually bashed them until they were in an edible format. And we fed this little girl.
Wow.
And that little girl is 34, 35 today.
Wow.
And lives in South Africa in Senin and has 2 of her own children.
Wow.
So that's stuck in the back of my mind.
Yes. Okay. Now I begin to understand a little bit, because one thing that I wanted to ask, how is then a military soldier like you have been have an interest in agriculture? I just could not see, you know, that connection. What inspired?
Well, now you know the secret. Now you know the secret.
Now I know. But that is very deep. That is very deep, Steven. Okay.
Yes, well, you know, it followed through for the rest of my life, because after leaving the military, I was a lieutenant colonel.
Yes.
I was the head of counterintelligence, and I specialized in counter-revolutionary warfare.
Okay.
In my time, and when I left the military, I ended up with the Chamber of Commerce in Port Elizabeth, where I was the chairman of the Job Creation Committee for the Eastern Cape.
Okay.
Now, in that role, I had to take expatriates. Now, I'm talking about my old enemies that I had fought against, and I now work together with these people, and we became incredible friends. They are still my friends today.
Yes.
And together we worked at creating mechanisms for employment creation. But I used the strategies which I'd learned in the military. And I'd studied economics after leaving the military, and I infused these two and developed a project by which we can optimize military counter-revolutionary warfare strategies with economics and create sustainable employment.
I see.
And it worked very well. And we created ComSec, Community Self-Employment Center. Our focus was specifically on the motor industry in Port Elizabeth, because that is the main economic activity there.
Okay, so fast forward. I see you. When I met you, I didn't meet you in the military. I didn't meet you in the motor industry. I met you holding a tire and you know, some vegetables.
Well,
and we're gonna talk.
What happened?
Wait a minute. We're gonna talk about the tire for this episode today. I just want to get to know who Steven is, and I know we met when you were talking about the Garden of Life. On one hand, you are telling me the story about this military and stuff, and on the other hand, you are talking about the Garden of Life. How did that happen? Fast forward,
Well, I came to
Steven is talking
Gauteng.
about, yeah, the Garden of Life. Yes?
Yeah, I came to Gauteng and I was asked by Deloitte and Touche that stage to assist in a project in Orange Farm.
Yes.
And I realized very quickly there that the difference between what I did in Port Elizabeth and in Gauteng is that the people, the biggest economic threat is food. That there was a shortage of food in the local communities and that people had to travel 20, 30 kilometers to go and buy a week's food. And that the food being sold in the townships was incredibly expensive.
Yes.
So we started off doing the Garden of Life project. I worked with a gentleman who did eco-circle farming. It was very complicated. I simplified it because, you know, a soldier thinks rows and straight and structure.
No, I know.
Action.
Yes, yes.
And so I took this very fancy thing, I simplified it, and we started teaching the people how to grow their own food. But at that stage, we used to dig holes in the ground.
Yes.
We used to make compost and mulch. We used to refurbish the ground, put it back in the hole and plant from there using a basic hydroponic system, which is made out of Coke bottles, which are thrown away.
Hey, no,
so that's where we started.
Yes, I know. At some point, I'm going to show, you know, some pictures, and I'll also send people to your website so that they see exactly in practical terms what you are talking about. And that was at the point where I met you, and I've never looked back, because for me, what you taught me is that, yes, when we talk about food, we talk about agriculture, we talk about food security, a person does not necessarily have to have a big tractor and a big, you know, piece of land to start doing something. Yes. So you bring this inclusiveness that, you know, for you to come into agricultural sector, you can come through different pathways, even through the farming pathway. You can start small and grow from there. That is a message that I'm learning as I engage with you all the time. Is that it?
You see, yes, Hlami, you know, we took, and that's what I learned in my days at 32 Battalion, is that we had to take Pavus, civilians who had no military experience. We had 3 weeks and we had to have them back in the bush fighting. So I had to learn their very basic techniques of training people.
Yes.
And that's exactly what I did when I faced with this challenge of food security and the need to get something simple. Keep it simple that can be replicated, that one person can teach another person, can teach another person, so that you can fulfill your objective in a very, very short time.
Yes.
And that is why with the technique we use with the Garden of Life, I've in Kuli village,
which village?
Children. Kuli village in the Eastern Cape.
That was recently.
Yeah, it was last year. I was asked to go and train school children, which I did.
Okay.
And then at the same day, they said to me, but there's a creche down the road. Don't you want to go and train them too? I said, of course I will.
Okay.
But what I did is I took the school children and I used the school children at the creche to train the little children. I've got photos on that, and it was quite amazing. I stood back. I was actually quite nervous because, we had children with knives that they're sticking into bottles. And I was thinking to myself, oh, I'm not insured against this. But I left them, and it was quite wonderful because these children now became responsible for their own communities.
I see.
They took on the vision of saying, but we can grow our own food.
Thank you. Look, you are demystifying so many things. You are demystifying these things at, you know, so many levels. What I'm hearing now, you are talking about mentorship turned upside down, if I were to call it that way. So you are saying the school children take ownership and go back and influence their parents to say, yes, we can grow our own food, not the other way around.
Yeah. No, well, I must tell you about what happened in Tembisa, because I've actually got a photo. I trained at a creche in Tembisa. They used the Farmer Kids program, which we're going to talk a bit about more now.
Yes.
But at the end of the year function, one of the parents came up to me and said, Mr. Barnard, I'm angry with you.
Okay.
I said, why? He says, what you teaching the children?
Yes.
I said, no, but I don't understand, sir. Everybody says the farmer kids and the children learning how to grow vegetables is wonderful. He
Yes.
said, yes, but my daughter came home with a cabbage she grew.
With a
And
what?
I was a cabbage, a big
Okay.
cabbage.
Yes.
I've actually got a photo of it.
Okay.
And she gave me the cabbage. She says, Papa, yeah, it's a cabbage which I grew.
Oh.
And I said, thank you, my darling. And he
Yes.
said, but Papa, now you owe me 10 Rand. So he said, Mr. Barnard, what are you teaching the children? The parents must pay. I said, sir, you got this wrong.
Yes.
I said, I have taught your daughter to become an entrepreneur.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
So
Thank
she
you.
will be able, she now understands the principle of
Yes.
demand and supply. She understands the principle of
Yes.
what I call in Zulu,
Yes.
the difference between umsebenzi, which means I want a job,
Yes.
to ukusebenzi imali,
Yes.
which means I want to work to
Work.
make money. And that's
yes.
exactly what she did.
I'm
She went
very,
and grew a cabbage, and she went to her dad, and she
Yes.
sold him, but he says, now you pay for that cabbage.
Steven, I'm very, very excited because one thing that I hear more and more is that, our children do not have the entrepreneurial skills. But what you are
No.
telling me is that with your approach, you don't only teach them how to grow vegetables, but you also instill the entrepreneurial skills in them.
Definitely,
Yes.
definitely. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, when God created us, He
Yes.
did not create us to be consumers. He
Yes.
created us to be producers.
Okay. Okay.
And it
Okay.
says so in the Bible. If you go look in the book of Genesis, it says,
Yes.
I have created you and given you the garden
Yes.
so that you might produce food so that
Yes.
you can eat. He
Okay.
didn't say, I produced you so that you can go to the local retail store to buy. He
Yes.
didn't say that.
No.
He said, you must produce.
Okay.
And that's what we've got to do. We've got to instill this culture of production back into the young people again.
Thank you. Steven, there is one thing I have, this vision, for the next 10 years, and I'm starting small, but I need people like you to tell me if I'm crazy or not. My
No, my
vision
dear,
is
you're
that,
spot on.
yes, my vision is that, in 2030, where we talk about these sustainable development goals and all that, I would like to see at least 30 million communities that are food secured in the next 10 years. I want to see 30 million hectares of, land where people are actually doing, sustainable, production and agriculture. But I also advocate for these 6G principles where you can grow anywhere, grow your plate, grown by anyone, grow every time and all that. Do you think it's something that is achievable?
Well, I want to show you something quickly. Just 1 second.
Okay, perfect. I'll wait for you.
No, here I am.
Yes.
My wife banned me from growing my plants in the TV room. So I now have my office. And this you see here
Yes.
is a gooseberry,
Okay.
which I hacked from a gooseberry berry, one berry. I took and cut it up. I planted it. And now I've got a gooseberry. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 gooseberry plants, which have been growing, which I'm now going to transplant, which are going to create more gooseberries. So I refer to the principle of stop seeing a tomato as a tomato. It's a tomato factory. That wasn't a gooseberry, it was a gooseberry factory, because one gooseberry has now given me 4 plants, which is going to give me 2 kilograms of gooseberries, which I can sell. Gooseberries are now selling at 250 Rand a kilogram.
Wow.
So, I mean, I use the example of the tomato. A tomato, you cut open, it's got 90 seeds in. Tomatoes are selling at 3 Rand each.
Yes.
One tomato plant gives you between 6 and 10 tomatoes.
Thank you. You know what?
6 and 10 tomatoes are now at 60. At 6 times 3 gives you 18 times by 90.
Okay. I'm excited. I'm excited, Steven, because you make me feel that I'm not crazy, actually.
No, you're not crazy. I'm crazy too.
This is achievable.
Yes.
So, okay, our listeners out there, if you don't see an opportunity here, then the problem is with you, not with the opportunity. Honestly, if you don't see an opportunity here from what we are, discussing now, but Stephen, some of our listeners there and viewers might be saying, how do we start? How do we start? What would you advise? How do I start? How do you advise?
First of all, change the way you think.
Thank you. Change the
You
way
need
you
two
think.
words.
Okay.
I can.
I can. Change the way
Those
you
are what I
think.
teach the children.
Okay.
I can.
Okay. But
And once you say,
yes.
the technique which you now use
Mm-hmm.
is on our YouTube channel. All of the lessons are on our YouTube channel, but
Okay.
you use a small piece of ground.
Yes.
You do not throw away your green waste in your kitchen anymore.
Okay.
You start making your own compost.
Yes.
You start taking tomatoes which you cut off, and you start planting that. You start taking potato peels, which got a little nodule on. You start planting those. You take the bottom of onions, you soak it in water, you start planting it. So you start developing a thinking and start looking at vegetables differently. Because once you understand that, then you know, right, how do I plant these things?
I like it. I think I'm going to invite you even more because I know the United Nations, they have declared, a decade of, I think the year of, vegetables and whatever. But we'll talk about that with, at another, stage, because I want you to be part of, championing that because you are already doing that. Yeah.
Oh, I've been doing it every day with thousands of children and adults.
And adults, yes. Okay, fine. I wanted you to talk a little bit about the adult part because I hear you talking about you training children and children. How do you involve the adults?
Well, you see, what we've done now specifically with the military veterans.
Yes.
Every country is sitting with a problem of the military veterans that have gone through this traumatic experience of being in a war situation, and they come out and then they are rejected, they're forgotten, they're lost.
Yes.
So the specific program I'm busy with now for military veterans is called the MVAC program, the Military Veterans Agripreneur Program, the word which you taught me so nicely, agripreneur.
Yes, agripreneur, yes.
And what we're doing is we train up the military veterans, or we take teachers, or we take people who have training experience, and we train them as trainers.
I see.
That's step number one. And then what we do is we identify a school, a college, a church, an NPO, or a place where we can set up a model training garden.
I hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
Then we design and develop that training garden, and we provide that person with all the training material and the techniques, and we train them to be trainers.
I see. Okay. Go ahead.
Then what we do is we have our first workshop where we invite the parents in the community, or we invite the unemployed people, disabled people, young people, and we say, come, and we teach them how to do the Garden of Life vegetire growing system.
Yes.
Okay. It doesn't have to be a tie. It can be a box. I'm now training people how to grow wall vegetable gardens using Coke bottles that you cut open. So you don't need. You can now grow against your wall.
Yeah, right? I hear you.
Then once that, then that happens, then you take the adults and you start forming cooperatives.
I see.
You give them business training. So you're saying, all right, I just take Mama Lodi.
Yes.
Mama Lodi spends 2.5 million rand a month on vegetables or funerals.
Okay. Yes, I hear you. Not only Mamelodi, yes.
No, all over the world it's happening.
Yes.
I mean, food is an important part of a funeral.
But Steven, I know you have a lot of information, because I also want people to find you so that you come and actually assist, with these, skills, because
No, we'd
because
love to do that.
yes, because what I'm learning. So sometimes when you talk to other people, when you talk about farming, you hear this input cost that is so big that people get so discouraged. But every time I talk to you, you tell me, no, you can start with nothing, and you go somewhere. I
An
like
old
to
Coke
hear
bottle.
I like to hear that, because you make me feel that it is important and it's also possible to achieve, that vision of 30 million communities by 2030.
Yeah.
Stephen,
Oh, we
I
can do
would
it.
like, yes, I would like, to keep you more, but, I'm looking at my time. My time is actually running out, but I would like to invite you for the next session, because we still haven't touched anything around, the farmer kids, concept. I want us to,
Yes.
to unpack that. We'll have, some pictures. I know my little daughter also benefited from it, and she will also share her own experiences. Ladies and
Okay.
gentlemen, I'm going to share with you where to find, Stephen, but you also know where to find me. If you like, this conversation with Stephen, you have to subscribe. You have to follow me on social media. I promise you, I'm going to bring Stephen again for my next session. This is the Perfect Talk with Dr. Hlami. Today we are talking farming, but the different kind of farming where anyone and everyone can actually become, you know, can become an actor, can participate. I would like to invite you from the next session. I would like to invite all the teachers, all the retired teachers. If you are from a church, and everyone who want to contribute towards, achieving zero hunger for your community, you don't want to miss the next, session with Steven Barnard. Ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much, Stephen, for today's session. God bless.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Ladies and
Bye-bye,
gentlemen,
everybody.
yes, thank you. That is what we have time for today. Until next time.